Now, my student here, who is 77 years old, clears his hips better than most golfers in their 20s and 30s. Now, how he is able to do that is because of a few key things he does in his golf swing, in his setup, in how he moves in his backswing, and then how he sequences his downswing. So absolutely, my student, as we can see here, yes, for 77 years old, in incredible shape. So he does get his hips even more open than I do as a 30-year-old professional golfer. So you might not all be able to get it as incredibly open as my student does, but you will absolutely, from this video, no matter how old or no matter your athleticism, you will get your hips clearing more without a doubt from getting these points into your swing. So his first key here is his setup position. So he does two things in his setup which really help. Number one, his armpits are over the balls of his feet. They're a little bit more back. So this is absolutely such a key importance to be able to clear the hips properly. Because with my armpits over the balls of my feet, that ultimately means the mass of my upper body is over the mass of my lower body. So then as I move, I can stay in better balance as I turn and as I rotate. Because most golfers are here with their armpits over their toes instead. And as they start to turn, their pelvis starts to work underneath them to keep their balance, because your weight will go on your toes if your upper body's in front of that lower body, which would happen if your armpits over your toes at setup. And then if you stay in that posture, you're just going to completely fall forward. You'll lose your balance. No one does that. Everyone who has their armpits over their toes will extend to make the spine one piece to stay in posture. You'll have this nasty looking under-rotated swing there. So what my student does really nicely, armpits over balls of the feet, allows as you turn the weight to go back into the trail heel in the backswing, and allows you to turn and clear in the downswing whilst maintaining posture, because the mass of the upper body is on top of the lower body. So that's what he does, absolutely, armpits over the toes. So I'll show you a good procedure to do that in a minute. But other than that, nice flare in the foot. He's got a little bit of a flare in that left foot. So important, especially for senior golfers. I say it's important for everyone, to be honest. So with that little flare in the foot there, what that's going to help you with, that's going to open up the range of motion you can perform rotationally into that left hip capsule. So it just frees up the movement, because if you're like this, where most golfers are, dead straight in front with their toes, if you try to turn from there, you're going to hit a brick wall really fast. Watch this. So toes in front, what we don't want to do, let me turn as much as I can. That's as much rotation as I can get before I hit a brick wall. If I didn't know the effect this could make on me, I would say, oh, I just feel like I'm hitting my range of motion. I'm just a bit inflexible. Now, if I flare up my foot, and we'll see it again, how much more hip rotation I can get is crazy. Look at that, that's so much different. That's until the end of my range of motion. Again, golfer with cerebral palsy, so I have very limited range of motion like a senior golfer, and I can do it, you can do it too. If you get those both together, nice armpits over the toes. Little procedure to do for that is stand like this with the club out in front of you, a little bit of a bend in the knees, just a slight break to them, and then relax mid and upper back until the club reaches the ground. Boom, there we go. Now the armpits over the balls of the feet, pelvis is tucked under just like my student, and then that gives us a much better place to be able to clear the hips from. So the second thing he does exceptionally well is he gets more pelvis turn in the backswing. Now, this is where a lot of golfers will, and senior golfers will think I can't do that because, of course, not as flexible as he used to be. But if we see here from this driver swing of my student, look at how his left heel lifts up as well. So better hip turn is able, you're capable of doing it if you get that lead heel lifting up like you see all the greats in the game. It really helps you get that range of motion that you might not think you have. So why does that help for the downswing though? So clearing those hips. So why I've got this in my belt loops, just so you can visually see what the right side of my hip is doing. So let's say I lift up my left heel a little bit as I'm taking that club back to give me freedom and range of motion. But we're going to see if that right side moves more back, more hip depth, which is what my student does really well. He gets brilliant hip depth, which is as he rotates the hips stay back. It primes the hips to stay back in the downswing. So what we want to do, like everyone's seen from my videos, if you watch my videos, is getting that left hip moving back to clear the hips in the downswing, which is what my student does very well. But you can only really do that if the right hip is back with some good turn. That then gets you clearing the hips naturally and nicely without feeling like it's putting any stress on the body as well. So again, I know that because of my disability. It puts no stress on the body, clearing the hips, if we do it properly. So we want to encourage this right side of the hips to go back there. Super, super important there. So how we can go about doing that is ultimately through a little feel, because I'm really keen on getting you guys doing this drill at the end of the video here. So ultimately, again, we could use that as a drill. I wouldn't recommend it though, with what we're going to talk about in a minute. We want to feel like someone is grabbing our right trouser pocket and giving it a good pull back to keep the hips back so then they can stay back in that downswing. So like someone's grabbing that right trouser pocket, giving it a pull. That's the sensation, the feeling we want. So that's where, as you go back, you'll start to feel like you're more on your trail heel. If you exaggerate it, you'll feel like your toes come up a little bit. But it really primes you to be staying nicely back so you can keep the hips back in the downswing. So we're stacking the cards in our favor, and that's what we've got to do for pretty much all amateur golfers. We've got to stack the cards in our favor, and especially senior golfers. If we're not athletic freaks in our 20s, which of course I certainly wasn't, we've got to do things really properly in a certain few ways, which might sometimes seem a little bit different at times as well. So, okay, right hip going back. If I feel like I need a little bit of left heel lift assistance to clear and get my hips open in the backswing, so be it. That's absolutely fine. So let's do a little one here. Someone's grabbing my right trouser pocket and pulling it backwards. So okay, now the bit you've all been waiting for. So the part where now we start to clear the hips, and what do we feel to be able to do this every single time, like my student. So okay, clearing the hips in the downswing, especially for a senior golfer, there's a certain part you want to focus on a little bit more than younger golfers. So that is where, for me, for example, most golfers, I would recommend them to do this. And still, for you senior golfers out there watching, is get that left hip to go back. If you push that left hip back, you will start to clear the hips. That's what my student does really, really well. But for senior golfers, what's the hard bit? The hard bit is getting that separation between upper body and lower body. Having that upper body stay where it is as we start the downswing, and left hip going back. That's what's really hard to do. So what most senior golfers will do if they start to get their left hip going back, their upper body is just going to go along with it. So that's where my student is really good at separation. This is the part where of course, him being in such good shape and extremely athletic guy for his age, does really, really well. So this is a bit where we have to maybe slightly do differently, even though he does this anyway, what we're going to talk about, but he doesn't have to feel this portion. And that is, we want to stop when we do get that left hip going back, that upper body going along with it, because we'll start to swing over the top and we'll just swipe across the golf ball, which is not what we want. So we have to feel like that chest region here is pointing at you for as long as you can. So in that style of downswing, feel like that chest is still pointing back. Get that left hip feeling like it's moving back there. That's going to then help you really open up the hips and clear them a little bit better. But if we're feeling, again, that chest pointing back, that's going to make sure the chest isn't throwing out and the club is going to stay on path. So I've got a really good drill to do for this, which we're going to get into after this shot. So left hip back, chest staying pointing back. We'll give you a little bit more of an inside path as well. Let's give it a go. Absolutely. Where are we on that? Just slightly on the inside, but nice little draw on there. So any of you slicers out there, it's going to help a ton. This is going to be huge for distance for you guys as well, especially with driver. So here we go. This is an awesome drill for separation in the downswing, but more focusing on a certain area. So this is where even for our senior golfers out there, getting that movement's difficult, like we said. So we still want to keep this moving and feeling flexible. So the drill I'd really want you to do is just get yourself up to a wall, put your hand on the wall, just like so, and then just give your hips a little turn. So like you're at the top of the backswing, and just turn those hips. Left hip feeling like it's going back, like you're sinking that hip back. But more of what I care about here is, of course, because your hands are on the wall, is your chest pointing at that wall. So it really trains that first movement there. Really, really good. So it trains that chest to stay where it is whilst that lower body starts to open up and turn. Really, really nice one. Okay, so that's our first portion. Like we just talked about with our feel of keeping that chest back, brilliant. That's going to really help you. So ultimately as well, it gives you time So many, of course, senior golfers, just amateur golfers in general, don't give themselves enough time to turn the hips. What does that really mean though? It's because their upper body goes too quickly, and that obviously doesn't give them time. So that's where if we're feeling like hands up against the wall, we're keeping there as we're turning down, the lower body will start to clear to the capability that you can do it. So that's why I don't care whether you're here, I don't care whether you're here, I just want them slightly open at the minimum at impact. This drill will help you get there, but of course, it's not going to be a drill about clearing the hips without this, is it? So that's where if you did a ton of that wall drill there, hands on the wall, getting that separation feeling, and with this, have a chair or a stool, just place it side behind you, just half a grip's distance would be fine. And then this is going to help you as you turn back, get your right hip going closer to this. And then as you start to move down, left hip, start to go back. And have we done this with my student? Absolutely. We've done this a lot with my student there. So this is a brilliant, brilliant drill. But your difference here is going to be feeling like, again, either your hands on the wall as you're turning, getting that left hip to go back and hit the stool or chair or box, whatever you decide to put there, or just feel like your chest is pointing back. So it slows down and gives you time to get those hips to clear. And that's ultimately the key from this lesson here is time. So here we go. Hips going back, right side going back to it's closing on the gap. Doesn't have to hit it completely, just closing that gap. And same with that left hip. Close it down, but get that chest pointing back. There we go. So nice, smooth. Just really wanted to do a nice control one just to make sure I'm getting everything right, which we can see there. Distance was just down a little bit just because I was just trying to really control it. And that's one of the big things as well there, guys. Don't go full crazy hard at it. You don't need to thrash at the golf ball, because if you're getting good sequencing, which this is training, upper body staying back, left side moving back there to the capability that you can do and the capacity that you can do, that's going to give you more distance over time once you get comfortable with it. Chest back, left hip going back, hitting the stool or chair or what have you. Lovely. Or slight pull, but again, got the movement, very, very nice. Brilliant. Okay, so how my student, 77 years old, clears his hips better than guys in their 20s and 30s. Again, he is very in shape and very athletic, very flexible as well for his age, but you don't need to be like that to be able to clear the hips. A lot of golfers and senior golfers sign themselves off of being able to do these movements where, like we said, even if you're slightly open and slightly rotated with the hips, which again might be the reality, it's going to be way easier if you follow these points here, and you will absolutely get there. But this doesn't substitute practice and good training with these two drills. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button. If you want more golf instruction just like this, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.